Well, hello, Morgan. Did you know that it is Friday? And on Friday, we do the Power Hour?
Crazy. I
Crazy,
woke up
right?
this morning and I was like, "What? We have another one?" No. Every Friday. Welcome everyone. Hello to all of you who are tuning in. I'm sure we have some new guests this morning. But if you're here, drop a hi in the comments or in the chat. We'd love to see your names float by. Um, and yeah, welcome to the B2B Power Hour. Today is
Big one.
Friday, and it's a big topic, Nicholas. How to
Yeah, everybody, as
maximize
you're coming
LinkedIn.
in, throw in what's your biggest takeaway that you want, or what is the one thing you want to get from today? Is
Mm-hmm.
it something to do with sales nav? Is it how to build a profile? Is it sequences using DMs? Throw it in the comments. Let us know, and we will make sure that we cover it for you guys. Hey, Tiffany,
Absolutely.
Anton,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jesse, good morning, good morning.
Yes. Good
Jeffrey,
morning, Jeffrey.
Alexander.
And so many others. Welcome, everyone. All right, Nick. The big topic of the day: how to maximize LinkedIn as a sales tool. Now, I will say before we jump into this, I feel we've had a nice little sequence over these last weeks exploring different dimensions of LinkedIn, the content side, the connection side, how to comment well, how to get in front of your prospects and accounts and all the rest of that. And now today we're going to upgrade all of those conversations into the powerhouse that LinkedIn is when it comes to a sales tool. Diana, Jesse, Sam, Wendy, Tracy, good morning. Thank you for the questions already. We're excited to dive in. So, Nick, where do you want to start?
The hardest part with going and switching from your cold calls, maybe your trade shows aren't working, maybe your email sequences just aren't getting opened, and switching to social is it's not about you. It is the
Mm-hmm.
hardest thing that I see. And anybody that has Sales Navigator right now, that has account lists built with lead lists built, and you're searching through those lead lists and watching as people are doing updates, there's no value in the content. There's no value in their emails. The first thing they write in there is we, I, or company. I would like to take, I mean, I would, we have
Our
to
company
change.
does this for you. It's like, no, come on.
And this is where people are having problems right now,
Mm,
is that we need to flip the equation. And LinkedIn is a tool, but only when you have the right strategy behind it. So, how do you integrate an account strategy into LinkedIn?
mhm.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you spend less than 5 seconds building your account list, you are a commodity seller, because now there's no real value to those accounts. All you're going to do is fight for price.
Mhm.
So we actually got to pump the brakes to win on LinkedIn. And we need to figure out where those values are that we deliver to those customers. So, what are those values? What is the value that customers can get from your product or service? And let's go deep. Who are the victims of inaction? Who right now is struggling in their day to day to advance their professional and personal life because your product isn't there?
Mhm. What would they do if you're not there? People, this is so funny, Nick. We were just talking about this the other day, and even in the green room this morning. Like I- we make this assumption, and as a marketer, I've made this assumption before that people need what we have to offer because it solves their problem, right? Well, if that was true, they would have already bought. So maybe they're not aware of it, or they're living life without it right now, and they're fine generally. There's very few people who are really, oh my god, I really need to solve this. That's a small percentage of the market at any time. So presuming that, yeah, they need what you have to offer isn't necessarily true. You have to figure out, well, what are they doing? What are they doing right now?
We also got to quantify that value for them. This is a hard part about sales too, is that when we go and focus too much on useless personalization and lack of relevance, is that we're waiting for those customers to do the work for us and actually quantify that value in their business. What is that lost opportunity? What are they missing out on? Where is that friction in their workflow? How does cybersecurity affect them going forward? What is that potential loss? What could happen? Where is the gain? What are they more motivated by? Look at their executive team. What is the makeup of their executive team? What is their background? Are they sales? Are they finance? Are they marketing? HR? Legal? You have to dive in. With public companies, you can actually go into their investment reports and read and get a
Mhm.
really good idea of what they base things on. I showed Morgan this the other day, which is funny because I realized I had never showed him. But you have to quantify the value for them and share that formula when you reach out. And when you build your entire profile based on that, it makes things a lot easier. Right now, it'd probably be hard to know what I do
Mm.
because I haven't upgraded my profile. I haven't given it a facelift since I've made some major changes. And so I need to take a step back and look at what value I want to deliver and who is it best suited for to use their language. And going back a few shows, we talked about customer research, how to go and do that, how to go and tailor your content. And then we need to build those account lists for those companies that need us the most. And we don't need 1,000. Most of the time, my lists are about 50.
50 accounts, to be clear.
And you can have
Mhm.
multiple account lists, but the
Mhm.
tighter the segmentation, the more you can have that conversation over and over and over again. And that value that that hypothesis, that guess that you have of the value you can deliver usually transfers with minor tweaks.
And all of this is before you actually do anything on LinkedIn. That's and this is what I love. Like LinkedIn is a tool, and you've definitely taught me this, the way to think through this a lot, which is like LinkedIn is a tool. It's something in our tool belt that we can use, and in our sales development motions, we can do cold email, we can do cold calls, we can do other sorts of outbound movements, inbound qualification, or whatever else. And LinkedIn is just another tool. So the same fundamentals that inform whether you perform well on any one of those tools is also true on LinkedIn. But as you were just getting into, Nick, there's some like added value or added benefit to Navigator because you can build tightly segmented account lists inside Sales Nav in order to in order to reach the right people, and all of that's based on available LinkedIn data on the platform. And so that way it's less well, I don't know if it's less manual. It depends, I suppose, on the account strategy that you're running, but all of this foundational work is what sets you up for success.
Yeah, and account strategy, the first time you do it takes a while. It might take you a full day, it might even take you a week. It also depends if you're doing customer research with it and doing interviews to really hone in on your messaging and figuring out those roles and responsibilities that drive the sale. Who is doing what? And not necessarily just their title, but what is their job responsibility? Are they responsible for the P&L, or who took that meeting originally? Was it the victim of not doing anything? And so you got to take that time to figure out who that is. And as we go and build these account lists and these lead lists, it evolves over time. So part of this is learning as you go. If you're sending out all these DMs and you're getting no response and they're not booking meetings, you need to change.
Mhm.
But there's two things you can change. It's your messaging or it's who you're talking to.
Mhm.
And the best way to figure this out is get a buddy that doesn't care about your results and is third party to it and will just look at it subjectively and say, you're messaging a bit selfish. There's no real value to
Mhm.
them. It doesn't answer why they should care.
Mhm.
And then you can work on it and hone it over time. But two, there's indirect and direct strategies on LinkedIn as well. The indirect strategy is posting content that is so good that it's highlighting the conversation that they're already having in their head. Man, they want me to go and make these 60 plus cold calls a day and send all these emails, but this shit doesn't work.
Right.
And in order for me to make money, I need to go and book these meetings, and these meetings need to stick, and my AE needs to go and sign off on them, or I don't get my bonus. So I'm barely making anything. That's a narrative. That's a conversation they're
Mhm.
having in their head.
Mhm.
What is your customer's narrative? Put it on social media. As you're putting this narrative on social media, you're allowed 100 connections per week. Do not do not go over 100. I have pushed LinkedIn jail enough times. I will tell you, it is sternly 100. And so think about it that you have a limited amount of bullets. You can only shoot
Mhm.
20, since we're all using the hunter analogies these days, anyways.
Sure. Mhm.
Just pick your 20. And what you want to do is tailor your content because you made that account strategy. You looked at who you're targeting. You figured out that narrative for those people you're connecting with, and you're posting that. So as you're connecting, even a blank connection request, especially if they're just a secondary connection, they're going to read.
Mhm.
They'll look at your tagline, they'll look at your banner, profile picture, maybe your about section. Sometimes you're featured. It's kind of more of an earned right over time,
Yeah.
but they always look at your activity to see if you're posting. And now if you shoot them a message and just say thank you, they bumps you up in the algorithm, especially if they respond. So now you are top of feed, top of mind, and you're producing content that is so good that they can't help but engage with it. And that
Mhm.
doesn't always mean liking or commenting. It could be a DM or it could be absolutely nothing for months.
Mhm.
I've had people recently reach out to me to say that they screenshot my posts and they turn it into an email and they send it.
That's high praise, man.
But they've been doing it for a while and I had no
Mhm.
idea.
Mhm.
So going back to the account strategy is what is the value that you are focusing on? What is that hypothesis of where you can affect their business today or soon?
Mhm. And
Turn that into
also,
content.
yeah, and honestly, the way I think about this to sort of add color from a content side in this sequence, there are questions that they're asking themselves. That's part of the narrative, right? Like the mistake that I see a lot of people make when it comes to value and demonstrating value is they make it all about them. So it's problem solving, technically speaking, right? You write up a post about the value that you can provide and solving a problem that your customer is experiencing. And it's a story, right? Here's how it went. Well, that's useful content, but you're only going to have so many of that. And then when that dries out, the mistake that a lot of people make is they continue to just promote the features of their products, promote the benefits of using their products, promote I mean, I don't know if anybody needs to hear this morning, but people don't care.
At
And
all.
that's not a bad thing. Your job is to make them care. That's and content is an indirect way to elevate the questions and the narratives that they're having inside their own head. And so the deeper that you can get in insights from customer interviews, customer conversations, listening to sales calls on your team, working with marketers to understand what they're doing, or vice versa, if you're a marketer working with sales to understand what they're doing, diving in to those specific questions that they're asking themselves. And chances are, here's how I know a good question from not a good question. A good question is everything about their own situation and their own problems. It
It's an
rarely has anything
observation.
to do with your product or your solution or the industry. So people tend to ask themselves questions like, how am I going to make how am I going to get consistent cash flow? How am I going to make payroll? That's sort of the
How am I
classic
going to get a
question in
raise?
small business. How am I going to get a raise? How am I right? These are all sort of me centered questions. The questions people tend not to ask is, what's the software product that I could use to solve this problem? Because people don't typically ask that. And when they do, it's going to be a very small percentage of the market that's actually asking that. And that's when they've engaged in a buyer's journey, quote unquote. So most people aren't asking that question to themselves. And that's why content that talks about our software product doesn't do as well as talking about those internal narratives and questions that people have, because content tailored to that first part is going to yield not only behavioral insights and what we like to call psychographics and understanding their behavioral motivations, it's also going to allow you to tell stories, even short stories, about your own experience with those problems. Some of the
Mhm.
best content that I see out on this platform is when somebody takes, um, let's say, a shared emotional experience. Like when you create content, you often have imposter syndrome. And some of the best, most engaging content I've seen is somebody who talks about imposter syndrome, but then relates it back to their own life, their own story. That's just engaging stuff. That just builds trust. It builds relationships without you ever having to DM someone, which is sort of the layer on top of this in this sequence.
Yeah.
So that's just some additional, color on the content side.
Yeah, this is the indirect side. Any strategy, any go to market is layered. It's stackable revenue that you play. Certain things pay off sooner, certain things pay off in a lot longer, like up running a podcast or running a live show. So you have to stack them as a salesperson, as a marketer, as a business owner, so that you have different things adding to your pipelining and building consistency. So the whole point of this first strategy is you're really getting a strong understanding, stepping inside, literally stepping inside your customer's shoes if you can, and seeing what stresses them out. Where are the problems before you take it to the owner of the P&L and tell them to make a change? Because now you're like a detective and you're like, I made these observations. These observations lead me to think that we could save you 540,000 based on this formula. Does this formula sound right?
Hmm.
That changes the equation. But we're posting, we're
Hmm.
connecting with the right people to receive
Hmm.
that message. We're thanking them to play to the algorithm, and then after this, you can ask them a question.
Hmm.
You can ask them a question that is a race to commonality. What is a common thing that they struggle with, or that they're interested in, or that they posted about, that you can start talking about to go and buffer the conversation and be human? Start it. It also bumps you back up in the feed, and it earns trust to get them commenting, which then boosts the algorithm to get you seen by more people just like them, because people like us say things like this, and we're crowd animals. Like we group together. And
Hmm.
so commenting then magnifies this content and connection strategy, and it's all fueled by putting the right people in your audience and getting
Hmm.
to those super users of LinkedIn that want to go and chime in through comments.
Do you have some like favorite examples of questions that you're asking in DMs to people after you've connected with them and thanked them for connecting? I mean, I know some of it is tailored, like, are you going after VPs versus not VPs? But do you have some favorites, Nick?
Yeah, I keep it really simple. Like an SDR
Hmm.
will connect with me and I'm like, hey, thanks for connecting. And they'll, you're welcome. It was, appreciate connecting with you. How's everything going?
Hmm.
Do you find that LinkedIn is a useful tool?
Hmm.
Or have you noticed that your cold calls aren't quite landing the way you would like? Just start a conversation, or I'll see something on their profile. The one thing that I got from Josh Braun that I love is he said, tell them what inspires you about them. I've been playing. Oh, my phone is being a jerk. But I was using the native app, LinkedIn app, and sending a video so it's natively in the chat. And I would tell them
Hmm.
what inspires me about them.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
didn't force it. It's first thing that came to my mind. What is something I really respect about them? And I threw it in there.
Hmm.
And holy man, did it just open the floodgates to really good conversation and introductions and different topics that is just considered going.
Hmm. I feel like we have just to sort of summarize this early term. What just to package it up, you're building an account list, max 50 within that account list. You can create a lead list out of those account lists shared by roles or the stakeholders that you want to go after. And then you're running up to 20 connections per day, sometimes blank, sometimes personalized requests, depending upon what would matter most. And then you would have, um, uh, and then you have the uh, co- uh, conversations after you connect with them. Sorry, I guess I blanked on the word conversations.
Oh, you've been dipping too much into sales and forgetting what those are? Just teasing.
Oh gosh, man, that's so bad.
But
um, uh,
now we got to shift
yeah.
gears.
Hmm.
Now you've gone from indirect. You have something working in the background. So if you do this in the morning using your sales nav with your account list built and your lead list built, you can just spend 15 minutes, a half an hour, and hopefully you have better luck than I did this morning because people were just producing garbage content, so there was nothing to comment,
Oh
which you guys will
gosh.
notice and it'll, accelerate your better content, but just comment. Do your
Hmm.
5 or 10 comments. Before you do that, post your piece of content. It doesn't have to be extravagant. Just post. It'll get better over time when you do it every single day. Send your 20 connections, and now you're done. You are
Hmm.
done LinkedIn for the morning. Using that account strategy that you built overall, what were those personas that were not on LinkedIn? It's time to call them. It's time to
Hmm.
email them and look at a way to route into that account that is preferred to them. Who do you mutually know who knows them? Did they used to work with a company that you used to work for? Find commonalities and then do your outreach.
Hmm.
So
LinkedIn is
it's not
just a
all LinkedIn.
yeah, it's just a tool. It's an important one, but it's layered on the other strategies. And um, uh, one thing that Sarah had asked, which is interesting, what if your messaging is great, has worked on prospects before, but are not getting responses anymore? And I presume that's on LinkedIn. Um, Nick, what do you think?
What if your messaging is not landing? Sorry, one more
Even
time.
though it used to, yeah. So
It
if your
has to
messaging
evolve
is
over
great and it's
time.
worked before, and it's not working anymore, what do you do?
The greatest cause of workplace accidents is complacency. You, my
I was
friend, have hit
wondering
a
where you were going
workplace
with this.
you hit a workplace accident. You got comfortable with what worked and didn't keep
Mm,
growing. And I've been there until the accident became catastrophic and then I had to reinvent the whole wheel. And this is why when you're doing these comments and you're looking at who's engaging and what they're engaging with, try new things.
mm,
Keep pushing the envelope. Listen to Blissful Prospecting. J-Bay is amazing. Go look at Josh
mhm,
Braun. Get these other thought leaders. Justin Michaels. Look at Hype Cycle. And keep pushing the envelope to see what resonates with you and figure out different messaging techniques and frameworks that align with your style of selling. And
mhm.
so, I found that most of the time messaging seems to expire somewhere between the 2 to 3 month mark, depending on how much you're pushing it.
Yeah, right.
And same if we're just talk about email spears quick.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Over 70% of my responses come from the first email.
Hmm.
Maybe some people with enterprise or mid-market customers see something different, but I don't
Of
usually
course.
see a big change on the 20th email other than them
Mhm.
cursing me out on LinkedIn if they have me we're mutually connected. So
So let's talk about this, because one thing that I hear a lot in sort of companies that are adapting themselves to social selling, I use that in quotes here because that can mean a lot of things, but basically we need to use LinkedIn more to sell to our accounts. One thing is that they do is they take their existing cold email sequence and then they just adapt it to LinkedIn. And based on your look alone, I presume that is not a good idea. I asked that as a softball question because I also know it's not a good idea.
one thing that I realized through my
Hmm.
own mistakes in the last little while is, do you notice that LinkedIn looks a hell of a lot like a text message, like your texting app
Hmm. Yeah.
versus an email app?
Hmm. Strange.
Short and sweet. It's about
Hmm.
conversations. Email is originally designed for task management. And so you got to tease out a conversation. Same with LinkedIn. But the thing is, how it's read, how it's natively consumed, is it has to be short and you have to sell sentence by sentence why it's important to them. And so You could probably I've got away with 2 sentence email type structures like what Justin Michaels or even Will Allred did a really good post earlier today on how he restructures. Like something
Mhm.
like that works really well. But this is going back to direct strategy, and your direct strategy isn't what we talked about earlier in the show.
Mm.
This is having a purpose to reach out. So you have your accounts that you're kind of in the background that you're just working indirectly. Now you should always have 3 to 5, sometimes more accounts that you're actively working. And I like doing a 2-month rotation where I'll pick 50 accounts and each week I start 5 new ones. But on Monday in the morning, I work those accounts looking at where's that value and building that value hypothesis, and then I'm doing my outreach. And in Sales Navigator, there's a note function when you're looking at your account lists.
Mhm.
Use that. Use that to give yourself clues as to why you picked that account. Who are the personas that you're targeting through the decision tree that they give you access to? And decide, are you going to go for the middle and go for the manager that's struggling? Are you going to go for the owner of the P&L right away because you have enough information from past work that would be very interesting to them and it's super relevant? Or are you going for the ultimate victim that is struggling day to day and map that out? And I've even seen people go as far as do a conversational flow, like a doctor's treatment list, where they're like,
Oh, like
yeah, decision making tree, where it's like,
interesting.
what are the observations that lead us to working together? Hey, are
Hmm.
you noticing that your cold calls just aren't going as well as they used to, and you're not talking to as many people, and when you are, they're not interested?
Hmm.
Have you noticed that your emails aren't getting opened and they're not getting replied? Hmm, maybe it's time to look at social selling. Oh, LinkedIn's not working for you. What is your let's dive into that. Maybe we can go and book a strategy session to go look at LinkedIn. But you need to have a matrix of
Mhm.
observations. No doctor, think about this. Doctors are governed by a professional body that if they took your diagnosis because you went and read it on the internet and said, "Hey doctor, this is what I have. I need this prescription. Give it to me now." They'd get fired and fined.
Yeah.
So why is that okay in sales? In complex
Mm.
sales, they don't make these decisions all day. And what we do is part of change management. And so we need to guide them through this process and do it as a professional. A
Mhm.
professional wouldn't recommend you getting open heart surgery because you want to be bionic.
Right.
No, you should go and buy this open heart surgery. It'll make you last forever. You don't know, you don't really need it right now, but I want to go and hit quota. So, like, you should buy it. But this is why when you go and do this decision making tree and apply it to all of your prospecting, you're going to find those customers that actually need you now and see the value of you now and are willing to make the change. Why change? Why now? Because trying
And
to go and push somebody to do something they don't want to do is like
mm-mm.
telling your significant other to calm down when they freak out.
That goes well all the
Yep,
time.
all the time.
I want to tie this into because this is a great time to ask. Tracy had asked at the very beginning. One of the takeaways that she wanted was, "What is the best way to ask for the meeting over LinkedIn?" And I want to be a soundboard to what you just said, which is not every person you connect with is a good fit for a meeting.
Yep.
And that's because maybe they're not ready. Maybe you haven't seen the right observations. Maybe the conversation hasn't gone anywhere. Maybe they're the right stakeholder, but it's the wrong time. There's all of these, the same sorts of dimensions that drive sales on other platforms also drive sales on LinkedIn. But let's say you have this, it's the right sort of observation, it's the right sort of approach. What is the best way to ask for the meeting over LinkedIn? What are the ways that you like to direct people off platform? Because that's sort of the terminology that gets thrown around.
I state an observation, and you can do what Justin Michaels does, state your observation with an impact statement, add social proof,
Hmm.
interested.
Hmm.
You don't ask for the meeting right away.
Just if they're interested.
You don't walk up to a beautiful person on the side of the street and say, "Let's go for dinner."
Right.
Maybe it'll work every once in a while, but you need to have a conversation to see if there's somebody you want to meet with, if you want to go on a date
Mm.
with, if you want to take to dinner and talk for a while.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't need to be weeks. It doesn't need to be months. It could be simply 2 or 3 messages. Tracy, what are those 5 to 10 things that customers need to know before they work with you? Think about the mindset. Do they care about their customers because they're really high value and that making an awkward, ugly process to verify who you are isn't acceptable? How does that come out in conversation? What does that look like on a profile? And you got to reverse engineer the values that you keep for your company and put them into those individual people and how they act. The psychographics. You can't see psychographics looking through a window.
Mm-mm.
You have to interact with them for them to be observed. And so you got to figure out what those 2 or 3 things, those 1 or 2 conversation sequences that you're going to have before. It sounds like this would be something that's would be good for a meeting. Or, maybe you saw a post and they said that, I just used this the other day, that their puppy is misbehaving and it's, causing havoc. You could send them a DM, be like, one of my friends has the best behaved puppy. And they said that I went and asked them, they said this was the book that changed everything for them. Good luck.
Value deposit.
And
Yeah.
they'll come back and you'll start a conversation using those parameters. And the meeting naturally comes up. I've joked, I call it vampire sales. I don't know if I've told you this one, Morgan. It's been something I've been playing with this week. So by folklore, vampires can't come into your house unless they're invited.
Hmm.
Don't pitch unless you're invited.
Mm-hmm.
Just talk about the conversation. They say a problem, don't jump on it. Like, once again, like your significant other, if they say, hey, work was frustrating today, like so and so didn't do this, I'm like, cool, did you tell them and how stupid they are and go and fix that? That doesn't work.
No.
You can't pounce on it and tell them that they're not making a smart decision. How can you ease into that conversation where you've piqued their interest, they know that you can offer value and they can trust you, and that a meeting is a no-brainer.
Do you think that this is why social selling out on LinkedIn is different than other tools and techniques?
It's slower and it's
It's
more
yeah.
trust and relationship based. And
Mm-hmm.
so I can cold call you out of the blue, and because
Mm-hmm.
it's asynchronous conversation, it happens faster.
Mm.
I can prove my value faster. I can show relevance faster. But social selling, people don't go on LinkedIn to get sold. People go on LinkedIn to consume. It's a different reason. The phone is a tool. Your
Of
email
course.
is a workplace tool. LinkedIn is a place to consume content. It's content first. It's
Mm-hmm.
value first. So when you're doing all your outreach, you have to play to that as, we'll shoot a podcast or I'll go and have an episode that I've listened to that is just gold. And it's
Mm-hmm.
usually not ours. It'll be somebody else's. I'm like, Morgan, listen to this. But I'll send it to 7, 8, 10 different people. I'm like, hey, we just talked about this in a comment or in a DM. I think this is really high value for you.
Mm-hmm.
But these strategies all come together. So you're indirectly you're slowing down to hurry up.
Mm-hmm.
And you're establishing some rapport. And all of that rapport and relationship building happens before you meet. That's the difference. This has changed. People want to get to know you and feel like they can trust you. It's also why video is so powerful right now for a medium, because people get to know you and get to know your face versus just blank text that, marketing regurgitated and you just reshared blankly. But we won't stop there. And
I
then
was about to say
so you'll
I
have
could say a
your
lot on that, but let's keep on going.
so you have your indirect, you have your
Mm-hmm.
one layer of direct where you're working accounts, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have your account list, you're going your 5 accounts per week. The next one, LinkedIn does this really great thing that they're called intent triggers.
Mm-hmm.
What are those moments in that decision maker's career that make them more susceptible to wanting to talk to you? That they're your pain points that you help with, or the ability for you to go and have an impact on their career is most evident. very common ones that I see people take advantage of: funding rounds, promotions, company mentioned in the news,
Hmm.
podcasts,
New senior
uh,
leadership hire, you know?
content got published on Forbes.
Hmm.
But there's a trigger that, if it's relevant to what you do, you can start a conversation because it could inspire you, or it's genuine. It can build a relationship while tying it into a good conversation, which should organically lead to a meeting. It's just don't do it right away.
Mm.
But
Hmm.
triggers will get you in the door faster. You could ask for a meeting almost instantly, like first or second introduction. I've seen people with triggers in particular put it in their personalized invitation and get a meeting right away.
Hmm.
Because you'll just say like, "Hey, saw your post on Forbes about customer service and how churn is killing businesses. Would love to look at how our company helped Acme increase retention by 17%, which increased their profit that year by X. Thoughts?"
Hmm.
So all you're doing is showing, are you interested? Are you open to this? And then they'll usually ask for the meeting. But
And
when
then
you
if
come
they're not,
across as
they're not. I
pushy,
mean, that's
well,
the best part.
but you got to think about it. Anytime somebody removes your ability to make a decision, what do?
Hmm.
You want to do it more. Hey,
Yeah.
Morgan, you are not allowed to use your professional mic on our shows anymore. Why?
Well, yeah, why?
Oh, of course, I'm going to use it every single meeting now because you told me
Yeah.
not to. Like as a kid, how many times do you get
Hmm.
told not to run? Or when we remove the ability to make a decision, we rebel and it doesn't go anywhere. When you force a meeting, you're removing their ability to go and say, "Am I interested in this?"
Mm-hmm.
So you're missing the psychology that drives people to want to meet with you. Play to that psychology first. The second response will either be them or you booking the meeting. You got to go and pay attention to how people naturally make decisions, behaviors that
Hmm.
drive buying decisions, and the
Hmm.
psychographics that drive it, so that LinkedIn actually works for you. And just so you guys
Hmm.
know, I don't know why, but our chat's broken. So unless Morgan's actually going
I've
on
pulled it up and
LinkedIn,
I'm still looking at stuff. So hi
okay,
everyone. We're just not going to be able to pull it up on screen.
yeah, I'm not sure
Massimo
what
did ask a
happened.
good question about this, which is like how to be unique in posting LinkedIn. And it's funny in posting on LinkedIn because we were even talking about this in the green room this morning, where over the last few days I've definitely scrolled through the feeds and been like, it's just noise, lots of people are posting the same thing, and I think there's a spectrum here too, if I may start answering this question, and I want to hear what you think about, Nick, because I think on one end of the spectrum is the explicit promo reel, and this is maybe the what I would call the worst offense, which is where on your profile the only sort of content you're posting is reshared links, reshared stuff about your company. That's not really meaningful engagement. But for those of us who are actually writing native content, and for those of us who are like sharing videos, writing posts, as we talked about, to deliver value to our target audience up front, one of the things that you should think about, and one of the things that keeps me humble, is your network is not that big. And LinkedIn is like 800 million people or something crazy. And your reach on the algorithm is some multiple of your actual connections, right? Because of the way the algorithm shows content. So over the course of a month, even if you're only connected with a few thousand people, you may reach tens of thousands of people through your content. But that is mathematically an extremely small percentage of the total network. And so the question about uniqueness is not unique in the big sense, which is paralyzing in my view. How do I be unique, unlike anybody else? It's how do I uniquely deliver value to our target audience? What are the things that I'm going to share that maybe other people have shared too, but I'm going to share it in a way that's different, in a way that's true to me, or with my own voice, with my own stories. The same lessons are the same lessons, right? We can all get better at cold emailing, or we can all get better at content writing or copywriting. And you and I have both read enough and worked on enough workshops. Like the fundamental principles are pretty much the same in every one of them. But because people share differently or share in different ways, unique is really relative to who, and who else is your audience listening to? Who else is your audience engaging with? And think about, relative to them, what do they get from me versus them? So unique is not like, oh, I'm the shiny gold object that only is one of a kind, which could be true, but that's a lot harder to do than just being relatively unique, literally relative to other people who your target audience wants to focus on, and deliver value in that way. That's at least how I'd start to answer that question.
It's funny. I was thinking this morning as I was going through the feed and I'm looking at like, our company just won an award. Look how amazing we are. And I'm like, from forgetting Sarah Marshall, I'm
Oh,
Elvis
yes.
Snow. Bullshit, 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 bullshit. People
Oh,
tune that out really
man.
fast because nobody cares.
Hmm. Hmm.
And step into their shoes. If you want to be unique, show them that you know them better than anyone else and have a conversation through a post. You'll stand out. You want to go and try something
Mm-hmm.
new? Do low quality video on your phone that shows that you're just shooting it just for them. Talk to them through the screen. Hey, Morgan, I know that since you've switched from being a marketer to sales, you have a lot of questions. And I'm here to answer them for you. That could be your intro.
Yeah, man.
But talk to someone through the screen. Pretend like there's someone behind. I can't remember the guy that when he did his investor reports, Berkshire Hathaway,
Warren
uh,
Buffett.
Warren Buffett. He always
Hmm.
talked to his belated wife.
Yep.
Every time he wrote any of those, he was always doing it through the lens of appeasing her.
Hmm.
So every time you write a piece, shift it from you.
Hmm.
Instead of saying, do I like this? Will they like this?
Hmm.
Before you send that message, would I say this to my best friend? Have I done the detective work to show that there's value in this conversation? Or should I do a little bit more?
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
am I being the doctor and asking for observations, or am I telling them what to think? You
Hmm.
got to flip the script and make it more conversational and relationship driven. And that's how you win on social. And by layering these different pieces, you win. I figured out a new trick recently with
Okay.
it's hard with LinkedIn not being an inbox and looking like email
Yep.
because you can't do task management, which is kind of a pain. You can write notes, but what I started to do is I have my account lists and my lead lists, and one of my lead lists is prospects.
Mm.
What's the difference between a prospect and a suspect?
Are we on a murder detective show now, Nick? I'm sorry.
Feels
I
a little
just
bit like it, but
yeah, I know. Go for it.
until you've done your research, until there's been those signs and symptoms that they've admitted to you,
Hmm.
they're not they're not your patient. They're just somebody you suspect of being a good fit. Once you start having that conversation and it's warm, throw it into a lead list called prospect. And as soon as they go and hit that point where they are now engaging and they book a meeting, move it to the CRM.
Yeah.
It's the easiest way to go and stay on track. You can also add influencers in on a lead list.
Hmm.
Who are those people that your customers trust or your prospects trust? They listen to and they engage with on a regular basis. Those who are actually active on LinkedIn, who do they engage with? Go and comment on all their posts. Show up consistently. And one key, don't just comment on their posts. Go through the comments. Find people that fit your personas, that fit your target market, and comment
Hmm.
on their posts and build relationships because comments are communities.
Hmm.
That's how these big influencers win. It's really not about them, is that they're pulling a movement where they're getting enough people together to discuss the topic at hand. We'll all read Gary Vee all these people do different things, but there's a sense of community that gets created. Refine Labs and the whole team all have different personalities with different conversations that they discuss.
Hmm.
Be that community that is safe for them to jump in and have conversations, but trust by association by commenting on those influencers that have really high engagement. Justin Welsh pushes this all the time. If you listen to
All the time. Yeah.
look at all of his posts, he's like, "Hey, be the first to post on my stuff. You're gonna get 100,000 views on your profile." Not quite, but like you'll get like
Well,
a couple
but
thousand
yeah,
when you got 160,000 followers or more.
it's crazy. Yeah.
So
I
it
I don't want to. Oh
strategy.
yeah, finish your thought, but I didn't want to lose this thread. Jesse had asked at the very beginning as sort of a takeaway for today, and you had briefly mentioned this was any tips for using HubSpot and LinkedIn together. So I think broadly, how do you integrate your CRM into this? And what you had just brought up, which is really interesting, is a lot of LinkedIn is sort of a sea of prospects in many ways, and until you're able and confirm me, if I'm wrong, let me know. Until you're able to really book the meeting off of LinkedIn, which in many ways is sort of like a first touch call conversation, anyways, they don't enter your CRM.
No, but what where Jesse has a different system. They're the size of the
Mm.
company. I'm making some assumptions here, Jesse, and I can't see if you respond because the chat is broken and I don't know
Well,
what I did.
I'll let
So
him
I'm
know.
sorry
I'll
in
let him know.
advance. But he probably has either Teams or Enterprise Edition Sales Navigator, which actually
Mm.
opens up the you can crowdsource prospecting. And so one of the ways to take advantage of this feature is that when you have target accounts, you can actually look at those personas that you've put in that decision making tree and see who within your network has a direct relationship with them and ask for an introduction or leverage them. Hey, I see that we're both connected to so and so. Make a statement
Mm.
or go and talk to that person
Hmm.
and ask if they can make an introduction or if they know them well. That is one of the best features of that. The other benefit of using any CRM integration is you're not switching. Using native LinkedIn, it's easy to get distracted. When you're
Yeah.
using Sales Navigator, you're only seeing what you've asked for. The account list, the lead list, it's all based on that research and the quality of the accounts and the leads that you put in there. And so when you're working inside the CRM, you're not shifting. There's no shifting screens. It's all really clean and simple. And so maybe you'll do you'll post your content natively and then you'll jump in and you'll do your connections. Then the next thing you'll go comment in the CRM and you'll just stay in the CRM. And so you do your comments and you'll work your account. So say you say comments are half an hour, active pursuit of accounts is an hour, 30 minutes.
Hmm.
You just go.
Hmm.
And so I stick in the CRM just so that it's work. And then you can work your account. But the biggest reason to use that is leverage the get introduced feature and showing where those relationships are. Also look at past companies or shared interests. One of the things too is they'll show you like you lived in the same city, you listed the same skill, or leverage commonalities. People like to trust people that look like them, act like them, sound like them.
Hmm.
Leverage that. That's the big advantage of that is having that using those degrees of separation to your advantage. And then also just
Absolutely.
removing all the distraction and actually categorizing all the different pieces. Also, if you have Sales Navigator on your phone, it will actually uh, record calls as well. So it'll look at on your lead list who's there, and if you talk to them, whichever form, it'll go and put it on there. So then your CRM's grabbing information, LinkedIn's grabbing information, and automatically putting it into your CRM. This just makes your life easier. The whole point of these
Hmm.
integrations is less data entry.
Hmm.
It'll also go and pop up your schedule so that you know who you're meeting with so you can do a little recon. Maybe you're commenting, maybe you're figuring out what they're interested in. Like a doctor, you're putting in the work to do your diagnosis to have an informed, educated conversation.
That's is so interesting because in many ways, Nick, what I love about this approach that we've been talking about today is that it's just another thing that you're kind of layering on. Like, it doesn't
Yes.
it's not an obsessive amount of time on LinkedIn. It's
No.
hyper targeted lists, connection and outreach, conversations, comments on appropriate accounts, and driving value and building relationships. And honestly, like, the bare bones of that can be half an hour a day. But it's probably no more than a couple of hours a day, because there's diminishing return. And now you're just, and I fall prey to this too. Now you're just scrolling through the feed,
And this is
going like,
why I
what else is
say
here? Yeah.
work Sales Nav and not
Yep.
LinkedIn. LinkedIn is for my
Hmm.
personal time. Sales
Hmm.
Navigator's for work. So, and I want to just kind of bring it back to those two more points that I think are super critical.
Okay.
One, why are one of your lead lists not your existing customers?
Hmm.
They're posting. Have you one of your
Hmm.
account lists be customers? LinkedIn also allows you, when you go into settings, to go and set up your target personas, which it'll make recommendations. Keep adding your companies in there that you've sold to, add the personas that you interacted with in that process. Use that to go and keep tweaking Sales Navigator to make informed recommendations for you. And so this is using the AI that runs behind everything to your advantage.
Hmm. I love that.
And the other one is break up your LinkedIn use. Think of it like an investment. Some investments you'll wait 10, 20, a lifetime to collect on. Other ones you'll wait a couple months. LinkedIn content and comments and connections, let it simmer for a couple hours. Come back at the end of the day and respond. Thank people that connected with you and drive that conversation forward. So you're touching on it twice. Also, funny side thought, people don't like people that are clingy,
Mm.
or they feel like, especially when you're in that survival mode, and like they're trying to keep you on the phone, but you're the first person to get off the phone. And they're like, wow, like they're a professional. Like they did what they did and then they left. Like I didn't have to force them away. It breaks up that conversation to show that you're a professional and that you're making strategic investments
Mm.
structured throughout the day, so that those comments keep growing and your post keeps moving and more people keep adding to it. At the end of the day, you can cherry pick the best ones to go and respond to, or else it'll be so overwhelming to respond to all those DMs and comments because it just keeps going and going and going.
Hmm.
In the meantime, if you have Sales Navigator, there's an autoresponder. And so when they
How
send you a
fun.
DM, you can actually go and put in something where it automatically replies back and says, "Hey, I don't respond to messages between this time. In the meantime, check out my website, check out our podcast,"
Hmm.
and you can redirect them to a value add, but be respectful of their time so that they know that you
Hmm.
didn't forget about them.
Hmm.
But the whole thing is you got to treat it like a chess match, and you're not,
So,
shooting from the hip, knee
yeah.
jerk, and working it so that when you're calling, you're strategically choosing to pick up the phone, because there's an advantage to making that call versus LinkedIn, email, video, or anything else. That when you use
Mm.
email, maybe you realize that it's better secondary or it's the third point. You have to decide, build a strategy, and test it over and over and over to see if this process is a well-oiled machine or if you're just efficiently doing something that's not effective. And that's when you need to make a change.
So, before our time expires today, I do want to talk about the elephant in the room, which we haven't discussed, is your personal profile. Because we talked a lot about like how to use the platform and some of the nitty gritty on Sales Nav. And if obviously any of you want more of that, I know we are more than happy to answer those in our DMs, or on Monday night calls that we've been doing. So,
Or a lunch and
but
learn.
let's, or yeah, or lunch and learns or whatever. But uh, let's talk about the profile. So, Nick, obviously, there's sort of a range of profiles that we've seen out on LinkedIn, and some of them are more obviously the individual influencer kind of profile that has a specific offer. But what if you're just working for a company? What if you're an account executive somewhere, or you're just a sales professional, or even a marketer at any of these companies, and what you sell, quote unquote, is what the company has to offer? Like, what are those building blocks that you look for, and what are some areas that people don't really need to care about?
The two types of profiles that I'm seeing win right now more than
Hmm.
any other one is the resource hub and the landing page.
Hmm.
The landing page is kind of self-explanatory. You basically make everything about why buy. And so your tagline is about the specific value you deliver. Your banner is about why you, and what is that action step. Your featured is all about that call to action to get them to book a meeting or buy your course or whatever, join a community. And then the about section is basically like proof in the pudding. You're showing how you know them and how
Mm-hmm.
knowing them has paid off. What's your social proof? The other thing you have to go and look at is who you're getting recommendations from and what you're getting recommended on, because that is also social proof that'll speak for you as well. And so basically, all the stuff you're doing, your profile is like a website that is working in the background while you sleep. The other style is the resource hub, and it's you showing that you know your customer better than anyone else, that you want to go and be that industry leader or that, you know, subject matter expert that they can trust, and that you have the answers to all their questions and have thought about what you put on your profile so that aligns. And so it's constantly dynamic and changing as you're getting better at figuring out that narrative that they're saying in their heads, as you're posting different content that's resonating with people. And it's like when you go to, like, HubSpot does a good job of this, where they'll have like the crazy long articles that they're all clustered and linked together, and
Yep.
you're building that on your website without the attribution.
Mm.
One thing I will note, that the people that are doing this well, it's all organic LinkedIn.
Hmm.
Very few things are other places unless there's a specific purpose other than you just capturing information. And so they might link a podcast that answered a question the best they've ever heard it, or they saw a strategy that's just killer and they wasn't there, so they're just sharing it. And so it's a hub. It's a trusted
Hmm.
source so that people have a reason to come back to you daily or weekly or refer you, and it does it in the background without you ever having to go and touch a keyboard, scroll through your phone. So those are the two that I see win. How about yourself, Morgan?
Um, I, I also see those same categories. I think really the only thing that came up for me is shadow pitching, and this is a mistake I think that people make, which is, and this is in either the resource hub, landing page configuration, or anything else, where they sort of again center all of their content about them. And much like a really good website landing page for anything we've clicked on from Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever else, it's all about them, the customer. And the mistake that, from a very technical level, I've called this a shadow pitch before, you kind of continue to relate everything back to your company. And it's fine, like to do that a little bit. Of course, it's your about section. It's about your story and it's about the companies that you have. And it can be an asynchronous pitch, but you don't want to, in my view, you don't want to layer that on too heavily. um,
Yeah.
Usually a good banner image that's branded is nice, a headline that's really value focused is good, and then reserve the pitch for the about section, and then link stuff that interests you in the featured section, or however else you want to orient it. But if somebody comes to your profile, in my view, and your banner, your headline, in your about section all say the same thing, and they're all about you and not the customer, that there's just these little alarm bells, the little spidey sense that kind of goes off, that goes, well, if I really connect with them, I'm probably going to get sold. And people don't want to get sold on LinkedIn. They want to build relationships. They want to consume content. They want
Connect.
to,
They send you a connection request and instantly get a pitch slap as soon as you
and
accept it. You're like,
all the
oh, I
time.
didn't see
Yeah.
that coming. I actually take bets now. Somebody will like send
Yeah.
me one. I'm like, how quickly until they pitch me on something and I block them?
Exactly. And
30
that's where
minutes.
People, the reason that that works is because people are pattern matching, and they've seen profiles that are very sales focused, and they've seen profiles that are very value focused. And when we see people who are just showing up on the platform as they are doing their thing, then they're like, oh, maybe we'll have a good conversation with this person, versus somebody who's here to just sell, 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 and somebody who's leveraging LinkedIn to try and get to you specifically and make the pitch and get you to a meeting. Not only does that rush a potentially meaningful relationship, it also sets off the little spidey sense that we all have that says, it's not worth my time. And that's more true for lots and lots of LinkedIn users that we may be trying to sell to, who are just using the platform to consume and to see what's out in the world. They may even be more resistant to that approach than the rest of us.
Do you know why so many people say that sales is luck, Morgan?
Oh, go for it.
Because there's nothing that goes into it. There's no planning, there's no pre-work
Mhm.
before they talk to the customer. And so it happens by accident. Yes, they might be great at navigating the sale, but nobody put any time and effort into that list. Nobody put any time and effort into knowing the actual responsibilities of the types of people they should be talking to. And so it's an accident because they didn't do the work before to earn it.
Mm.
And if I'm probably going to piss a few people off, shoot me a DM. I'd be happy to go and discuss. But it's commodity sales. When you put no effort into building your list, somebody just hands it to you. They don't tell you why those people matter, how you pick them out of that list, who you should be talking to, and why. There's no why behind the how. You're going to be playing the price game because
Mhm.
now you've been put in the commodity profile. Good
Absolutely.
luck.
All right. We are at our time. Any last thoughts after that, Nick?
Thank you so much to everybody that tunes in every week. We really appreciate you. I really appreciate all your questions that I've been getting lately. You guys are on track and killing it. I really It's really exciting to see you guys grow. And I'm gonna have to go and share some of these stories. But thank you. Know that even
Mhm.
though I don't get back to you right away, I'm still thinking about you. I discuss it with Morgan. And if you need a little extra help, message us about Monday. Join us.
Mhm. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you, everyone, for joining this morning. Have a happy Friday, and we'll see you next Friday.
Happy social selling.
Bye.
Bye.